And yeah. So, now that we've gotten to somewhere where I can actually present some content, as opposed to, no. This talk is about, basically companies that are in their startup maturity phase, right? And how they're growing, and how security wasn't really part of the painting, or like even the color palette, or anything of the sort. And there's a subtitle. We'll get to that. So as a bit of a disclaimer, because I have to reason, it's just that this is mostly a long rant. So if anyone's been to SteelCon last year or has watched the videos from SteelCon last year's video was a very technical talk about JavaScript war crimes. So it's like, what is the war crimes lady doing here again? This is a rant. Opinions will be vocalized. I may be incorrect, but this is what I feel is the most authentic representation of my opinions. This talk is less organized than the abstract. The abstract is like 3 paragraphs. You sort things out. When you're writing the actual content of a talk, you realize that you have ideas, except they don't fit a very linear pattern. And usually they do when you're talking about like a thing that happened, but there it's like a rant. So you're going to get the rant experience as well. And yeah, feel free to disagree, and we can talk about it at the end. But yeah. Now, before I introduce myself and like what brings me here, I kind of want to like at least get everyone into the not businessy startup mindset of like 5 people with an MBA just wanking each other. I want to give you what they think a startup is, and then what my opinion of a startup is. So the business version of a startup, right? It's a company with a defined life cycle that starts with like searching for a problem, because usually you can't go very far without a problem, and then trying to fit a solution to that problem. Then build the fix to the problem, usually a product, which they're going to try to sell and market and all that jazz. And then grow, because that's, if you're bigger, then obviously you're more attractive, or you can hire more people and you make more money, and then you can grow, and then you can hire, and the cycle, right? And then you can, like, become a mature company, TM. Startup maturity is kind of like the biggest moving goalpost in, like, startup description. It's like, well, when is it really mature? Is it when it's functional? Like, it works... The product works 100% of the time, 70% of the time, 90% of the time, whatever. It works, I guess. Has bugs. Deployable. Yeah, you can update it without manually getting one person that has a very specific version of Ubuntu to compile a binary that you use as a dependency in your thing. That's one stage of a product being mature. Then you have stable, where you don't get random BSODs when you update drivers. And then you have expandable. The product exists, is tested, you can add features, it's fine. So my version of a startup is just, it's a small business, so far so good. Created around an idea. People usually have ideas. And as with many ideas, some of them are bad. Many of them are bad. There's many ideas in many of our heads, including mine, and most of them are bad. And this usually involves finding a solution to a problem, so there's parallels to the business version, right? And sometimes a problem to solve. Because you find a lot of companies that are trying to solve a problem that has already been solved better. Or that are trying to do something that already exists, but in another country, or trying to do something that already exists, but they try to be bigger and better than the other company in order to, like, cast shade and profit off of someone else's idea. And usually, small number of individuals create it, a very tight-knit group of, like, potential frenemies in the future, potential romantic arcs, potential, Sam Altman and, that company, and aiming to show value by producing a somewhat viable product. Because let's be real, as soon as you've had Series B funding or Series A funding, you can actually hire people that vaguely know what they're on about. It's just making it seem appealing to whoever is giving you the money. And then it's either solve the problem or test the solution in a new market, because you never know. You might be growing into a new industry area. You might be going to Asia and finding out what works better in Asia in terms of business communication and strategy, things like that. And that's also part of all that. The problem is one does not simply unspaghettify a code base. If you're building a product that requires any amount of code, and you're doing it with 3 people that are either still in university or after, who cares? It's 3 people. They obviously know what they wrote in the code. It's all commented. It's all documented. It's secure. It's obviously secure. The most secure thing in the world. So yeah, the startup did security by design from the onset. And other hilarious jokes you can tell yourself. And this is kind of like where I go into the into part 2. The whole business jargon is now over. We're now getting into the real rant, which is where I'm kind of going to introduce myself. I'm Maya. I haven't mentioned my name. I am a cybersecurity person of some intentionally vague description. If you've heard some previous talks, I usually go by brackets employee at a brackets company for reasons. This means I am here of my own volition. None of this has been paid for by the company, and it's on my own time and my own dime, which gives me a lot of creative freedom so far. On the side, I like hiking, being a nerd, touching grass. I've been told I should do more of that, so I've been doing more of that. It's great. I can only recommend it. The outside is actually a fun place. It has air and fresh air. And in fact, there are places like forests and mountains where there are in fact no other people, which is also a very nice place where you can touch grass and not see other people. So you might notice I'm also a bit introverted, which is kind of weird because I'm giving a talk in front of a bunch of people. But yeah. On the side, I also get involved in communities, capture flag events, conferences, etc., such as this. And yeah, I do a lot of stupid fun things. I think this talk is going to be a part of that stupid and also fun descriptor. And for a bit of history, I worked as a software IoT developer for a startup that was involved in live pollution monitoring for cyclists when I was in university. It was kind of funny until one of the creators just was more interested in his PhD, which I guess I understand. Then we kind of it died off, and I just continued doing my studies. Some open source DV resources / a quick response system, which was thought of at a hackathon, was a vaguely okay idea, and then it kind of exploded in terms of the vision for the product, and then went nowhere, and then died, and then I left. European Commission project for autonomous public transportation my university was participating in, and I somehow got involved in the last 4 months, and had to rewrite the entire fucking module. And a current job, which has me interacting with a lot of things that quack like startups. I'm not saying they're startups, but they quack like one. If it walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, probably a duck. So this is why the subtitle is Hi, it's me, I'm the risk. Not because I'm the risk myself, although I am. For example, giving a talk, a bit risky. But it's also, I'm one person, and for a startup, one person is already a high risk. If it's a trusted individual, if it's someone that has access to any form of systems, like prod, or any form of admin portal, any form of anything, you end up having that small thing of can I really trust that person? And in fact is no. You can never trust someone. If someone comes at me with a baseball bat and threatens my kneecaps, or alternatively, proposes $6 billion and a new identity, I can't 100% guarantee, and I think no one in this room can 100% guarantee, that they will not take the one that saves their kneecap / the one that gives them $6 billion. And, like, I know a lot of people believe they're better than that, internally. But wait until it comes up, and then we can talk. Well, actually, you'll have a new identity / no more kneecaps. Or still kneecaps. So, yeah. So, where's the security in startups, usually? Does anyone have a random idea where security finds itself in startups? Does it exist, is the easy question. Who thinks it exists? Correct. No one... The thing is, we, and this is the impersonal we, this is me taking the voice of the startup, have other concerns, like making money, that's a very important concern. Fundraising, asking for more money to make more money. We live in a fantastic capitalistic society. This was sarcasm. Making a product that looks like it works, because if it doesn't look like it works, you're not going to get more money. You need to prove a form of value, even if that turns out to be very interestingly engineered Photoshop / GIFs / a very, very well executed PowerPoint presentation that is being run in parallel of another thing. People do a surprising amount of effort that is almost bigger than making the actual product and making something that looks like a product. And maybe pay people so that they can live, and by live I mean feed themselves occasionally. Because we don't want to give people too much money, because then they, get ideas or whatever. If you keep them desperate, you keep them there. Or they move on. One of both. And we, it's more impersonal, have other concerns. More important, operational costs. You wouldn't know how much hosting a bunch of misconfigured VMs on AWS costs. If you have 5 instant messaging apps / WhatsApp business and you're really trying to be networked and all that shit, that costs a lot of money. Especially paying other companies or events to become a sponsor. Because that gets your name out if you sponsor an event. I'm not throwing shade at any of the sponsors of this event. I actually don't know any of them. Not I've never seen them anywhere. It's just I have not seen the sponsor list. I have not looked at it. But whatever. I've been told they exist. The other one is ironing out bugs, which is like the one part of, like, if you have a big outage, say, and you have bugs that would cause such a thing, you want your service to become operational again. And you want to, like, make sure that doesn't happen again too soon. Because then your name is in some form of news cycle. Documenting it, because obviously you realize that you're going to lose some people along the way. So it's maybe a good idea to, in fact, have a broad strokes version of what the fuck you're trying to do, / what has been done to accomplish that goal. And then also, like, growing, the part where you grow to make money, and you need to onboard employees, and you need to, like, indoctrinate them into the company culture, and that they shouldn't ask too many questions. Things like that. The thing is, even if your product has some form of security, as in the product's features, say, you can log in, you have some form of user access control, you have all those funny things where your product is fine. If not the back end, but like the actual systems through which you log in to access AWS, if you're using Entra, just that. If everyone's using, like, Marbles213 as a password, because that's the thing they're using on Facebook, and that wasn't a breach, then the security of your product doesn't really matter, does it? Because at some point, somehow, if they have access to a mailbox, they can ping one guy, another person, get access to maybe the 1Password vault or some other business credentials, If you have a product that's secure, but anything else that isn't, your product is not secure. And this kind of comes to a two-body problem. At the end of the day, You have computers, and you have people. That's a two-body problem. Those are two problems that... It's a Venn diagram. And neither of those problems independently are easy. Computers, we have seen this in trying to get this to work. They do not work 100% of the time. They do not do expected behavior. Sometimes they have a weird blue screen. And people are, I'm not going to say worse. It's just they can surprise you in many different ways. And many of them you probably didn't think about it from the onset. And the intersection of that is kind of the equivalent of Narnia or something. Because it's a fantastic land where as soon as a person touches a computer, you're in a magical realm of possibility. And yeah. Someone taught Sand how to think, and we're all suffering from the consequences of that decision, I think. But yeah. Thing is, companies have this thing where, for the mildest possible reason, and we're starting with the people side of the Venn diagram, they want to know who the fuck you are. If it's just even to pay you. Not a bad idea, generally speaking. And it's usually providing an employee or someone with an identity isn't that hard, quote unquote. The problem is that for the companies that don't go to that step, you'll have a lot of companies with people on their personal Gmail doing whatever and communicating. And this is 5 years into the project or whatever, and they have like 50 employees, and everyone is using their own devices, their own Gmail, their own everything to promote and like talk and work. That's a problem. The ones that have set up some form of identity provider, maybe it works, maybe it works well, but you can do a lot of things with an identity provider. And yeah, you can use them for SSO, single sign-on. It works. Most of the time. And if it's well set up, then perfect. And then you have fun little things you can do with it, with conditional access or access to specific services. That way you can just yeet someone off your tenant and they have access to nothing anymore. Magical. It's a wonder people thought of solutions to make our lives easier. And it's not a wonder at all that a lot of people are ignoring the solutions and keeping their lives hard and miserable. So, yeah, it's an easy way to make a person known to a system. If you do it right, you can centralize it. That's the IDP part of it. Right? If you centralize, you can federate, which means you can like provision identities to other places based on rules. If you know who they are and what they're supposed to be accessing, you also know what they're not supposed to be accessing. And you can work with that information and do with it as you will. And at the end of the day, it's all data. In reference to any form of system, access by a person to a system, or person using a computer, is all data. It's data all the way down. So data is just easy. It just exists. We have a lot of it. We have too much of it. We don't know what to do with it. It's easy to have. It's easy to obtain. You can have terabytes of data. If you know what the data is, that's also a plus. If your data is like indexed and serialized and actually like usable in any way, shape, or form, that's also a massive plus. It's also easy to store. We have sorted the problem of storing data in places. Now, whether those places are the correct places or are only accessible by the people that need to have access and no one else, completely different question. And also a completely different answer. That one's the hard problem. It's also easy to send someone some data, even by accident. Wrong PDF, wrong email. You sent your financial documents to an unbothered third party. And, oh no, you made a typo in the email address, and now someone is having a very interesting conversation of why some person from a certain country paid an amount of money to do things. So this is not based on anything that has happened, at least personally to me. or to whom I work for, which is why I'm saying it in that way. But I have heard it happen at a multitude of companies. And data is also easy to share. I have a computer, I have a person that's working with me, I need to send them something, I can send it by email, I can put it on a USB key. My personal USB key, which I then bring home. There's a pattern to this. Problem is, undoing any of those actions, that's the hard part. If you bring your USB key somewhere else and you lose it, it's lost. You can't just unlose it. Unless you have ADHD and you actually just misplaced it. But that's a different story. You can't unsend data that easily. If someone has received it, has downloaded it, you cannot yourself do a hand of God act and unplug it from the hard drive. You could send out a hit squad, but that's a different story entirely and involves monetary resources that I at least do not have personally. Data is technically easy to unstore. Whether you actually get the entire master file table out of the way and you remove the entire disk so that no one can unstore it or reread it afterwards, even though there's no thing that says that there's a file there. We know the structure of a PNG. We know the magic bytes. We can carve disks. So we need to dispose of them. And yeah, you can't, depending on the data a company collects, for various reasons, it's very hard to say you have never had that data if you have collected it. Which is why I find it ridiculous when a lot of companies ask for a bajillion data points about people when they're signing up to services. Because they don't need to know that. But yeah. And so we come into another thing, and this is digital office, intangible people. The pandemic was good for this. It also showed a lot of problems with this. I am entirely for remote working, with the caveat of you need to give them devices that you control for purely work purposes. Because the person may be working from home, but they may be also going somewhere else. They may be going to visit family. And depending on the industry you work in, depending where that family is, they cannot do certain types of work from where they're currently working from. And it also depends on whether you expect them to be working there, because a lot of people won't tell you when they're with family, whatever. It's oh yeah, I'll be with my family. Fine. Turns out they're in Russia. And you're working in a regulated industry. Some cross-border data transfers are regulated. A lot of them are. A surprising amount of them are. And yeah. And moving on from that, and this is an interesting slide. What is this? What is the sequence of characters most likely to be?
Scott's password.
Scott's password, that's the one. No, it is a generic password. And people are fucking shit at passwords. I'm not saying to the people in this room, I'm not making any assumptions. I'm also not assuming you're stupid with passwords. My assumptions go neither way here. Why are you hiding, Scott? Anyhow. And they will reuse said passwords between personal content, whether it's their Facebook or whatever, personal spicy content, which is their Pornhub account, and corporate systems. And the problem is, usually you go to a thing, your one email address is first name, the last name, last two digits of your year of birth, and your corporate email address is first name, not last name, at where you work. And if you're a very hip company that has 10 employees, it's first name at where you work. And I fucking hate that addressing scheme because it makes address lists terrible. But hey. Alright, and they will lose passwords. That's the one golden rule. If they have passwords that they definitely shouldn't lose, they will lose them. So yeah. Passwords aren't a hard problem. they're a hard adoption problem for people. We know how to do passwords. We don't know how to get people to use them correctly. Then we have the problem of trust. So whom's to trust? Whom's to not trust? And at that point, it's all people. It's people all the way down. And I'm seeing someone with an English major screaming at my use of the...
Admiration.
That's admiration. There's three kinds of people that you're going to have any form of interaction with. Technically, there's four, but the first one is people you don't know and you don't trust, and you don't care about those because you don't know them. But there's people you don't know, and, well, people you don't know and trust is a weird one. People you don't know and don't trust, you don't care. But you do care because at the end of the day, they're a threat. They're an attacker. They could be. Or they're someone's grandmother. You don't know. It's a massive pool of the population. There's the people you know and don't trust, and those you can actually, like, work around and, like, operate around and have them part of your threat model and have them as part of, like, your block lists and everything. And there's the people you know and do trust. And at that point, you start to have a bit of what I can only call some form of, not corporate indoctrination, but it gets close to that. It's like, you need to convince people, and I say you as the impersonal corporate behemoth in becoming of 15 people, that only together can we build a better tomorrow, brighter tomorrow, which just sounds like a very, like corpo slang, whatever, also sounds like communism. Take from that what you will. The thing is, your better tomorrow better not come at the expense of my kneecaps, or in the way of a payday, or in the way of me actually feeding myself. Because that's where people start to get off the rails. And if you work in a certain corporate context, right, you might realize that every decision maker at a company is an expert. They've been told they're experts, they know they're experts, they will tell you they are experts. And they have read a few blog posts, or they may have a vague recollection or an idea of what happened, or they saw the news, and that's why they know exactly what this blue screen is from. And they know it's Microsoft that's to blame. I believe it was in Australia, it was some form of, some company that does the news described CrowdStrike as a malware company live on broadcast. And, like, technically for those 24 hours, not incorrect, but still, it's an interesting slip of the tongue when all of your screens that are on broadcast are blue. Anyhow, obligatory meme. And the thing is, when you're working in the startup environment, you're working sometimes in hot industries. Not hot as in risky, well, yes, as in risky, but hot as in, like, buzzwords. Right? Hot stuff that creates bubbles. Like inflation. And we all know how the housing market kind of blows up every once in a while. Like, we hope it happens again at some point, but downwards, but that's a different story. The hot stuff is a very interesting way to get funding, because it's buzzwords, and venture capitalists will have heard the buzzwords on the news. They might not know what it is or what it's about, but they think they know. And that's worse. So the pros of working in these kinds of industries is that you have fun, unknown projects. You've never done this before. You have funding, because people want to throw money at problems that they don't know are easily solved with not that. And the new people there may be nice, because they're younger. They've not been 40 years in the same company doing the exact same fucking data entry, and just be tired. But the cons of that is obviously that everyone else is trying to do the exact same fucking thing in the same industry, or something vaguely different but the same. No one knows if it's actually doable, and some people might fake their way through, And new people could also be complete dickbags. I don't know why I censored it on the slide. Thing is, there's this misattributed quote from Shakespeare, which is just, there are more ways for you to fuck up, Horatio, than are dreamt of in your philosophy. And that just shows to me that we're in the worst timeline for, tech workers. People will get employed. But to do what? And we can talk about, small companies growing and, how do you ensure trust, really? How do you trust the person? Beyond saying you don't. If you need to have a second key holder, how will you trust that person? Have you committed a crime together? Have you committed a murder together where you have mutually assured destruction? Possibly. But also on the other side, it's much easier just to start a cult within your company. Your word is the law. It doesn't need to be written down. You've just said this to someone, and they will do it. They will not question it. They will just do whatever the fuck you asked of them. It gets around small pesky little things like morality as soon as you've, indoctrinated them for 2 or 3 years to do menial things and then, better things. And then you at least have the certainty that the person is at least invested in the project, right? If they're in a cult and they believe in it, they're invested. And then you can be the sole decider of what makes the brighter tomorrow or the better tomorrow. And also who gets to be a part of this glorious purpose. And then you can make them crunch for days. Now, the obvious thing is, no, don't actually start a cult. But you gotta admit that a company that has a glorious purpose can sell itself quite well. But if you don't want to start a cult for liability reasons, you can always be a happy family. We're all family here, right? If someone leaves, well, they just chose not to be a part of the family. They chose to leave. They're traitors. They abandoned us in our time of need, right? And if people go above and beyond, it's out of love for their family. That's it. They did it out of love. They didn't expect a reward or something. And you can just throw some pizza at them. These are not my opinions, obviously. I will reiterate. But yeah. This is also causing a lot of exhaustion in most spheres of the industry, but also cybersecurity especially. Because a lot of people are just bouncing after a year of working at a place because they just can't take the pressure, the increased responsibilities, people leaving and not being replaced, just responsibility shifted, all that jazz. And yeah. Everyone's a part of the family until it's the Manson family. Computers, on the other hand, they do exactly what they're told to do. Which is also the problem. You better be sure that it's doing what has been asked of it, because what you think you asked exactly may not be as exact as the computer expected. And who asked it? Which, I'll just refer to CrowdStrike again. BYOD, bring your own doom. Many startups can't afford really to, or don't desire even to provision corporate laptops because you need to send them to places, or you need to have people, and they need to manage the things. And managing devices is so much of a pain. You need to provide software updates. Much easier if they have their own device and their local admin, and they can just install whatever they want. And many people are not that innocent that they won't have anything installed or any virus, or haven't gone to a website without an ad blocker and install some bullshit, and that is actually just a crypto miner on their fucking device. And they're using this for corporate stuff. Great success. And then you have no guardrails against bad intentions, because, obviously. And a company can be rich and profitable, but in debt. But it's not financial debt. Well, it can be financial debt. But it's also technical debt. And technical debt is the easy one. It's the one everyone knows. It's you don't have the documentation, but you have the people, right? The code documents itself and other lies. And like the people that are doing this are documenting it obviously as they go, and they've taken the time, but no, actually they've been assigned to do something else because they finished the bullet point of this feature works. And yeah, incompetence, that is my favorite one, is just a company doing things due to someone's incompetence in the past. Except they didn't know it was incompetence. They thought it was, like, well thought, because, as I mentioned earlier, every single decision maker is an expert. Trust that. When you lie to people about what your shit can do, and your shit don't do what you'd say it do, then people don't trust you anymore, and it's hard to come back from that. Or you just BSOD half of the world. Different story entirely. God, I'm milking that. And yeah, a lot of stuff that also you think has been documented, like the actual code, the code base, fine, works. But the various like scripts that have been thrown together for a combination of spite, bubblegum, and just curses, those might not be the small automations, the small hacks. And yeah, and if you're fine with all of these things that I've stated, may I introduce the bus factor. What happens if the one person that knows how the shit that works, or how to access the systems, or how to make someone else an administrator, gets hit by a bus, and is made temporarily or permanently unavailable? Yeah, how does one survive that? Well, you know, now I have like about, I'm going to say 5 to 10 minutes where I'm going to basically talk about things I've seen. It's more of a war story segment. And, yeah. I'm going to play Spot the Difference here, right? Between two projects, this was part of my European Commission work. One of them is the Ghost project. This is your Horizon grant number, because these things are all documented on the internet, and it's fantastic. University of Geneva was a member of that. And this one, which Niove, which was also had involvement by the University of Geneva. The first one is an IoT smart home cybersecurity solution. We love those. So that one thing you have to know about the European Commission projects is they don't really have to be realistic. They just have to sound good. And maybe you get some good things. And the second one was an Internet of Vehicle Safety and Security project in like ad hoc vehicular networks. So like, think autonomous bus. And the one in its description has blockchain in it, because blockchain does security. You want a blockchain running your IoT home system. It has machine learning and has a deep packet inspection. And a second one has machine learning, has deep packet inspection, it has an additional like spicier threat intelligence, which is, you know, you might also just say deep packet inspection, depending on what you're looking or expecting for, does the same thing, at least in part. And what happened is that our people had access to the first code base, okay, and had worked on that. We were told to work on the other code base, copy project, rename, figure out what to change. And about 3 to 4 months before the deadline of that, I get hired as whatever. And we get told, yeah, we would. One of the people that's working on this is pregnant now and is on maternity leave. The other one just broke their leg, is on like sick leave. And the project manager tells me that, and I'm like, sounds about right. And so there's 4 months of deadline, and I rewrite the entire fucking thing because I can't be arsed dealing with Java, someone else's Java. Moving on, other story. Data loss prevention on Cloud9. This is actually a blog post I wrote, which is why I'm going to go faster through this. It's nice when your company has a backup policy. It avoids things, like pesky little things like data loss. It's all part of data loss prevention. That's why you have automated backup system, where you upload your backups, such as database files, right? to a third-party location, one that could not possibly be affected by your service going down or your company headquarters catching fire. And so you put them in an S3 bucket. And you forget to secure the S3 bucket. The Castle Building Centers group in Canada supplies most of lumber and basically building materials for Canada, the US. And it turns out I had an entire SQL dump that was daily that they found on S3 bucket hunting. And, and I disclosed that. And when you look at the name of the clients, it's all part of a thing. But think Honeywell, think Louisiana Pacific Corporation, think Makita. Fun. And then some mild anecdotes. Fun stories from, like, various implementation attempts that happen where you do some things and then you try to make things more secure, right? Because we want to be more secure. It's, like, the objective. And you break past things that you manage to get working. Such as, well, mail-enabled scanners, so the ones that will send an email with the PDF of your scan to your mailbox, right? They don't really know how to do 2FA. Right? They also don't really know what a Microsoft account is, if you're using Android, or whatever. It turns out conditional access can be extremely unconditional. Nope, MFA all the time. All the time. Nope, you've been gone 6 days, you need to sign in again. You've been gone 2 hours, sign in again, please. Best thing in the world. Revoking local admin on every single device that you control via MDM, right, is great. Until you deal with remote workers, and that means now you need to supply every single piece of software that they use, but with the local admin rights to be able to have that software be installed. And people want a lot of shit software to do their jobs. And everything takes a Microsoft Minute. Right? A Microsoft Minute, which is not a real trademarked name, but I'm using it as a meme, and I've been using it as a meme for 2 years at this point. And this also affects anything like this, Google Workspace, anything that has to do with, like, big systems that control lots of people. It may say that it will take 5 to 10 seconds to federate. No, it fucking ain't. It will take a Microsoft Minute, which is anywhere between 5 seconds and 2 hours. Or 6 hours, or 2 weeks. You're not really sure. It'll happen. It's in the queue. You just don't control the queue. Or whatever system is connecting to the queue and when it's connecting and when it's doing it. So everything takes a while. Many things exist that can make your life easier. Those things. Managed security service providers, right? Community threat intel things like Yara, like all those things. A bunch of open source projects. I can cite Velociraptor as being a thing that I've tested at least once. But the thing is, all those things cost money. When you're a startup, you're trying to pinch pennies. Trying to cut all you can. Unless, you're making bank. But at that point, why not give your CEO a raise instead? At that point, the typical idea is maybe you should rob a bank. That will get you the funding you need, at least the money to get things running. Obviously, don't rob a bank. Sorry. I do not want to be legally held responsible for Dave robbing a bank.
It'd be my cult minions that rob the bank.
Exactly. That's your problem. And if you're perfect, like, you've gotten everything right, you've done everything right, everything is beautiful and rosy under the sun, you may be perfect. But, what about your suppliers? The one on the right is making a guest appearance and has been added yesterday, obviously. But yeah. Now into some mild conclusions. How the fuck do we fix all this? The easy answer is we don't. But the hard answer, and the one that a lot of people are trying to ignore, is find the smallest steps that you can do that have the largest impact. That is the simplest thing you can do. It can be an email rule that bans specific domains. Like yandex.ru or Hotmail. And if someone says, oh, my email was bounced, but I'm a legitimate person, you can go, okay, let's talk about that. More tech isn't always the answer. Deploying sensors onto every single computer that do things, that load drivers before the network drivers, potentially, or any other form of tech, is adding to the number of things you need to control. So yeah, smaller things, very large impact is the start. And then you can have fancy tech. And obviously, attackers have to be lucky once, defenders every time. That quote and that formulation is a very specific one that a few people from the UK might recognize. Yeah. And there's two somber takeaways. They're not really that somber. Well, there's one of them which is somber, which is just that most startups, security isn't part of their business objective. It's a cost of money, of time, of personnel. It's done by people that lack vision of the actual product or the platform because they're not paid to do that. They're paid to actually secure things or make people safer. You don't need them to be part of the magical family. You don't need them to believe in the Tooth Fairy or whatever. They don't need to have initiative for the glorious purpose of the company. No, you want them to make shit safe so that you can go on and do your glorious purpose on your own. Second takeaway is that anything with wheels should be a part of your threat model, because the bus factor is real. It's a real thing. And thankfully, this is the one thing I haven't really gotten about, is like actual people working at the company being a risk. Thankfully, I'm not a threat actor. Despite how fucking easy it would be to be one. Because you can be the threat actor, even unintentionally. Even if you have the best of fucking, intentions, the road to hell was paved with good intentions. And yeah. Those two things exist on stickers that are on this desk. Please come by and take some. This talk is available wherever. QA, find me here, or don't. But I exist on the internet, and that's pretty much me. Yeah. Any questions?
Are you okay?
No.
Would you like to join a cult?
Also no.
Do you have any bank robbing experience?
No.
Yeah,
Funnily
you're
enough.
not getting in the cult.
I'm not part of Dave's family, sorry. But yeah, that's pretty much it. If anyone has any questions, feel free to ask them. Or if you all had a massive whiplash of PTSD from having worked at a startup, I'm sorry, but for me this was therapy. And yeah, feel free to just exist on the internet with me if you want to talk to me.